So they'll be calling you a radical. All right, kiddies. Today we're going to talk about inflation. Legendary finance professor Kevin Blanch taught at the #1 school business in the United States, graduated there, watched it be fucking ripped to shreds for. Let's look. What are the only tool the Fed have? There's two powers at work when it comes to inflation. Liquidity versus interest rate. Too much liquidity heats up the economy. Now, what's liquidity? Money. Printed by the Fed, dumped on the Fed, which is in earnest over the last 20 years. Now, let's just go back a little bit to 1980, kids. Debt is the Siamese twin of inflation. They're connected at the hip. So, 1980, we had no debt. So, we started to see a little trickle of inflation flare up. Paul Volcker, when he was head of the Fed, he was an old Eccles economist. Eccles ran out of Ogden, Utah. I knew him personally. Federal Reserve's named after him. He'd be rolling over his grave. He says, we're going to kill it. We're going to kill it. We're going to kill it. It got ugly. The Reagan recession was hardcore. There was limits on how much cash you could get out of your own bank account. It was tough. It's called classical medicine. But the country was willing to take it. And it was ugly. The early 80s, people forget it was ugly in this country. Really hardcore. The economy was freaking shredded. I mean, it was really a tough place to be. And he kept jumping the interest rate, jumping it. He says, we're going to kill it. He rose the Fed rate clear up to what? 16, 17%. I mean, unbelievable. It worked. By the end of the 80s, Reagan decided this historic Fed that had brought us out of the Depression, had done all this, that was run by Mariner, Eccles, he decided District 13, which is really Ogden, but it's San Francisco, he was going to flip. It was really a surprise to us here in Ogden. Where did he find this guy? Ayn Rand Greenspan. Now, Alan Greenspan used to be an Ayn Rand groupie. For real. He used to follow around the streets of New York City, tugging on her dress. Now, Ayn Rand had nothing to do with economics. Ayn Rand was a science fiction writer, right? From Russia, who lived the vast majority of the end of her life on public assistance. And her books are, by the way, they're insanity. I mean, you might as well go read L. Ron Hubbard or some Joseph Smith. So, they're nuts, completely nuts. He takes over the Fed. So through the 90s, he's babbling that he's the most intelligent, using language to make him look like when it was Volcker's work. Now, I met Volcker multiple times. Volcker was huge, giant guy, cigar smoking. I think he was 6'8". He spoke at the #1 school of business in the United States that I taught at. By the way, this is the #1 testing score in an undergraduate program in the history of the United States. I was a student professor there and I graduated there that year. The legendary finance, it was a public school. Our sister school was Wharton. Yeah, that's Trump's school that he paid somebody to do all his work for. We would go back and forth. I mean, it was Wharton, Harvard, Weber State in neck and neck. We used to beat them every year via the testing. And it was that way for years. Now they're dead last, and they got their nuclear energy merit badge. What do you expect, the Wattises? So, it worked. So, all from the late 80s, clear till into the early 2000s, we had absolutely zero inflation. I mean, zero. You know, we called it the Goldilocks economy, remember? Because the market was doing well while there was zero inflation. I mean, I was on Wall Street, my teaching career, I still was a plasterer. I wouldn't ever give up that hawk and trowel. Building my big house, living my life, go. bag of plaster was, bag of cement was $5.95 for, oh my God, for 30 years. So the Goldilocks economy all through the 90s. It was incredible. I remember being interviewed by the radio station because I was at Weber State and I taught the derivative arbitrage class and I did the CPI. So the CPI and the PPI, Consumer Price Index, Producer Price Index. Each state gathers for the thing. We used to do it at Weber State University for the Fed number. I'm the guy that actually would get it. And I remember I knew what the PPI and the CPI was before it came out, which was a big deal trading in the markets in those days. If you knew what the CPI and the PPI number, because the Fed was really, they were legitimate then. If it was up a little, they would adjust interest rates accordingly. By the way, the traditional historic interest rate in this country, if you take the entire mean, was 7 point. Remember, we used to teach the rule of doubling. 7%, put your money in the bank. The rule of doubling. 7 in 7 years. The interest rate has been so low now for 20 years, the rule of doubling, and I mean, it's changed dramatically. The historic rate has gone from 7.14. I used to just tell him, just think of Babe Ruth's batting average or his home runs, 714. That's what I used to tell students. Recall. It's lowered clear down to 5.8 because it's been that low for 20 years. So in 2000, the legendary finance professor Clyde Cooley had, out of nowhere, the greatest finance professor in the world. So he had lobbied the Utah State legislature to get an MBA program at Weber State. I'm working for a Wall Street firm. I'm a derivative arb guy. And he's like, I want to get that first MBA from the greatest finance professor maybe in the history of the country. So I'm calling every day. I'm like, no, Kevin, there's no A's. It was really boutique. It was hard to get through. His average grade was like a D+. I mean, the year I graduated with Makoto and his sister, the Japanese royal family, who I still have connections with. Fukushima. They moved to Argentina when Fukushima happened. They still live there. It was elite students, and it was a public university, but it was hard as fuck to get through. It was hard. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, curb? Oh, fuck, he was way past the curb. All of them were up there. Legendary professors, incredible professors. And I remember you'd public speak, you'd have to get up your time in the barrel, Mr. Blanch. One the was a full grade. And a lot of the students were speaking in foreign language. I mean, it was competitive as hell. It was hardcore. So that's how I got my Wall Street job. You know, I'd already been there while I was going to school, teaching. He got mad cow. He'd been lobbying the Utah State legislature for an MBA. By law, we couldn't have one. Utah State had it. You know, Utah State used to teach an extension. We were the number one school business in the country for 9 consecutive years. They granted it. I'm like, I'm getting that first fucking MBA. I don't care what I got to do. So I'm talking to them. They're like, yeah, we'll let you work out of the water slab, blah, my boss, your nuclide, blah, 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 your plasma. I mean, living the fast lane. I come home, walk in the class, and I'm like, where's Clyde? You haven't heard? Now think about the odds of this. The number one school business, the brand new MBA, elite students flocking from all over the world, wanting them first MBAs from the legendary finance professor Clyde Cooley. And where's Clyde? There's a guy named Kyle Madsen in there at the University of Syracuse, who's originally from Ogden. I'm like, did you hear? Hear what? Just a couple weeks ago, he was in here teaching the last end of the summer semester, and he started talking to people that weren't there. They let him out. Something has attacked his brain. He's dying. What? I went and saw him. It ate him up and killed him in 2 or 3 months. It was mad cow. They burned mad cow in Bountiful. Stericycle, who promised to move by 2018. Now, what year it is? And right there in your neighborhood, there's an autistic school next door. So he died. So I'm like, oh, fuck. So they're begging me to help run the program, do the program. So I would gather the PPI and the CPI, and here I am teaching the MBA program without an MBA. but I'm doing it. I mean, Kyle was in way over his head. And so I'm gathering the PPI and I'm gathering the CPI data. And the fall of 2000, excuse me, the spring of 2000, I remember Kyle Madsen says, "You've never got it wrong." And some of the other professors says, "This guy has it before." And I laid out what my data was and what my number was. And the Fed's going to have to raise. We're starting to see a flicker of inflation. He came to me and he says, "That's the first time in your history that you've got it wrong." My boss said the same thing. I says, "I didn't get it wrong. Greenspan got it wrong. He should have been raising. We've got a little flicker of inflation." But he himself come out, and this is when it happened. This is when this happened. This is a historic thing. He started using the word stock market. Well, the stock market, because remember it capitulated on March 10th, 2010, the Palm 3Com spin out and was headed south. He says, "Well, we have to support the stock market," which is taboo. Never been done before. They never looked back. So Bush steals the election. Of course, his whole Fed snow job, they started tweaking all the rules and the laws. So basically, the liquidity situation in the United States has been going on for 22 years now. The Fed's philosophy, every time it's something, right? 9/11, whatever, there's always something to dump, to force you to the stock market. All the Fed's done is bowed to the United States stock market. Fuck your, CD. We used to call them blue hairs. The older people that wanted to get their money, they just gutted. So banks switched to fees. They were going to make all their dime off fees, ripping people off on fees because they couldn't make money on interest rates anymore. So they've slowly slashed. Now, think about traditional rate 7.14. The Fed rate basically got down to zero. Then they invented QE1, unheard of, illegal in the annals of the United States. And the Fed, don't give me this Jekyll Island bullshit. I read a book. Jekyll Island retooled the Fed. The Fed's been around since the inception of this country. It goes clear back to Alexander Hamilton, which is my bloodline, all the way back. There's been a central bank in this country even before this country was a country. So, we went off the gold standard. Oh, okay. Get off all that nonsense. Let's stay with the fact of liquidity. So, what did they do in those 2000s, Bush? And then we had Iraq and Afghanistan wars, more. They came up with this idea, the food producers, because a big component of the PPI and CPI is food, right? So what did they do? You had a bag of potato chips. They went like that. Cut the packaging in half. Cut the packaging in a third and left the price the same and tried to say that was no inflation. So the true inflation, and then they started playing what I call Ayn Rand Greenspan. I'm the guy that termed this science fiction economics. I branded that and coined that clear back in 2000. Ayn Rand Greenspan, they playing all kinds of games. They started passing laws. Bush got all kinds of bullshit laws through. Obama doubled down on them. Trump tripled down on them to where the Fed could actually buy stocks and buy bonds, which was unheard of. The manipulation, QE1, 2, quantitative easy, because the interest rate was so low they couldn't do anything more. So that gave them the ability to go in and buy stocks and buy bonds and manipulate the markets. And they've done it, QE1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to the point that it's insanity. They have total control of these markets. They're manipulating, they're buying trillions of dollars worth of bonds and or stocks a day, buying and selling. And so their philosophy now is they want to try to let the air out of the balloon. But with their eye on the stock market. This has been nothing but class warfare. Ayn Rand Greenspan fucking, trickle down. I mean, this has been the biggest failure in world economic history. So, stay with me. So what happened the last couple of years? And they want to blame war in Ukraine. No. It has 0.0 to do with it. What happened? Twofold. Took this from insane inflation for 18 years to hyper-psycho-inflation. What caused the hyperinflation? Twofold. The Fed, the dumping of liquidity. Yeah, the COVID relief plans, 2 of them. And Bitcoin. Now, stay with me. The money in this country, they watch, we call it M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. Those are the categories the Fed can watch the money and keep the over liquidity, which too much money on the economy overheats because people spend it, put pressure on goods. They lost control of the money supply through cryptocurrency. Now stay with me. Cryptocurrency, and I've been calling it a Ponzi scheme from the day it was out there. That's how we lost some of our good activists in our great community. I remember Lori in San Diego, oh, we're buying it. I hope she sold it at 56. Yeah, but the problem is I doubt people did. They write it all the way down. So what happened, this crypto invented money, by the way, which is nasty to the environment, these miners. So this giant sum of money, we don't even know how big it is, but it's big. And you don't think these people spend it in the kind? They're buying restaurants, they're buying buildings, they're buying houses. They're coming in and just buying up, using real estate, people's homes for investment. Giant sums of money that we have totally lost control of. And then, of course, the paycheck protection loans, which were still, I remember here in Utah, I think they had $6 billion. And they were reporting live on KSL. I had the radio on, listened to it. It was exhausted within 30 minutes. People were just and it was all people who had a lawyer business. I mean, there are estimates that 85% of those loans were shams, stoled. Now, they finally arrested the two shammers in Miami. Remember that preacher and his son and everything? And the feds arrested them freaking 2 years ago. Found out about him. They wait. It took NBC to do an investigative journalist piece on him before the feds even. There's so much of it. It's unbelievable. And they're just, remember when Trump did his, by the way, Trump was a socialist by definition. Trump created more debt than even Obama. And Obama created more debt than all presidents previous in 8 years in the history. Trump created more debt in 4 years than even Obama did in 8 years. And Obama was the biggest dumper of debt onto the U.S. economy in history, more than all other presidents combined. The debt has basically gone in 1999, I believe, from about 3-4 billion to well over 30. It's gone psycho. That money floods into the economy. It heats up the economy. And this has been going on, which I named Ayn Rand Greenspan with their eye on the stock market, which is a sham. Inflation is the biggest devastation to middle class and lower class, fixed income people. It is the killer. It's deadly. People have to eat. People have to be housed. And the fact that they've caused this housing bubble and they're allowing crypto scammers to use real estate as investment properties, well, there you go. All you got to do is simply pass a law, go back to these laws that existed in 1980. Whereas, did you know in Texas was the last state to do it? Unless you had 50% equity in your house, you could not refinance your house for these said reasons. Foreign investors and big investment groups could not buy houses or apartment complexes, for that matter, for real estate investment purposes, for investment. Couldn't do it because these are where people live. This is the foundation of a society. People have to live. People have to eat. What they've done, and if you go at the Fed number, which times that by 1 billion, they started lying on the Fed number. It's pure lies. And everybody's, we'll go back to gold. It's real simple. I've said this. The air coming out of crypto is going to help some. Yeah, for sure. Until you see cryptocurrency basically go under 10,000, maybe get around to 8,000. Until you see the United States stock market air come out of that down to 22, 23,000, you're going to continue with this madness. This thing has got to come down. Now, for instance, my little house here, my real estate property taxes had doubled. So it's like a friend I have here. I sold my house here a few years ago, thinking it was too high here, and he wanted to retire. And he went to San Diego. And I said, listen, property tax and insurance down there is big. Now, California's recently passed a law to stop the monsters, which is called the insurance industry, which are fucking monsters, from gang raping you. They're the first state that's done it. But property tax, like you go to Ireland, they'll say, how come you guys can't own anything? What do you mean? Property tax. What the fuck is that? And so property tax continues to rise, and he's like, Fuck, I should have listened to you. I bought the house with cash, and I'm paying more than I had in my fucking house payment a month now on insurance and property tax. I can't do it. I told you, just rent. Of course, rent's gone psycho. I mean, what they've done, it's terrorism in my book, and it's Ayn Rand Smith, the United States Fed. The Tea Party, which kills me, or fiscally responsible, which turned into the tax and spend, tax the future, spend and give to my friends, which is supposedly the GOP. Then there's the lefties. We're imperialist. Yeah, you're going to be the next freaking Barack Obama, freaking Jay-Z celebrityism. What they've done to the middle class and the lower class, and they wonder why these people are scrambling to look for someone to vote for. They're desperate. They've devastated this. It's terrorism. I've said it for years in my class. Alan Greenspan could be the greatest terrorist in human history, and it's affected interest rates all over the world because they work in symphony. It's hard to be abstract against this fucking liquidity beast. So the PP loans, now stay with me. How many trillions of dollars is just on the economy by Trump? How many by Biden? How many trillions? You know what kind of sums of money? What do you think people do with that money? So the United States consumer, we used to call them consumption junkies, the freaks. The answer to the environmental catastrophe is lower consumption, which Europeans do. They sew their clothes, they recycle, not here. We don't even consider recycling anymore. We used to consume, in 1980, we started to be consumption junkies, 12% of the world's economy. Consumption junkies, what you'll function. We have broke the record now every single year for 42 consecutive years on consumption. We're consuming 54% as of last year of the world's GDP. Well, the gross product period of the world, when we make up less than 4% of the world's population, we've gone from 12 to 54. We make up less than 4% of the world's population. So who's to blame? The United States Fed. It's disturbing. It's disgusting. Ayn Rand Greenspan. How do you unwind this now? Because the voters are so, we want low interest rates. They don't care about their neighbor. They don't care about their economy. They don't care about their society. They're just about selfish, me. I want to be able to buy a house and it just goes up no matter when I buy it. We can't let the air out of this too fast because then we'll vote everybody out. And so they've got so manipulated. The stock market needs, it's like I was talking to my nephew. He's a finance student getting ready to graduate at the U. And I'm like, that's our old school. I said, he's a resident. You're talking $40,000, $50,000 a year for a resident. I'm like, really? You know how much I went to the #1 school of business in the United States here and taught there? You know how much it was? It was like $3,000 a year. I know that was a while ago, but still. So, inflation 101 with Dr. Blanch. And I taught this. I taught the derivative arbitrage class at Weber State when 9/11 happened. Kyle Madsen got cancer and died. There, Weber State School of Business now ranks last. How do you go from Warren Buffett and Bill Childs come in and bought it, wanted to turn it into supply chain? I'm like, oh, fuck no. Fuck hell no. We're a powerhouse economics and finance school. The powerhouse. Fuck, turn it into supply chain. Slave goods, friend. They call themselves Christians. Usury. It's disgusting. Weber State gave themselves a award to Bill Childs for taking the #1 school of business from first to dead last. And they gave him a award the other day. And I'm like, well, there you have it. That's this country, right? So don't ever let them tell you this, that, the other thing. Bitcoin caused cryptocurrency caused a giant piece of this. And then the bigger piece of it was these PPP loans, which were just stolen from. You don't think those people spend that money into the economy? It overheated the economy. These people are just, and here's why: local municipalities, state municipalities, they don't want to fix this. The Fed surely doesn't want to fix this. I'll tell you why. We pay an interest rate on that debt. That $30 trillion, we're paying an interest rate. You, the taxpayer, pays it. The lower the interest rate, the less we have to pay. Oh, China bought it? No, we bought it from ourselves. It's a Ponzi scheme. By the way, Bitcoin is the biggest Ponzi. I like all these people saying now. I've been calling it a Ponzi scheme since fucking day one. And, so a lot of people made some fucking money if you sold high. Right now, dead cat bounce. Well, here's the thing on Bitcoin where I think the error come out of. Plenty of people are buying back and going back in and supporting it at 16, 17. But here's the problem. The Fed's going to regulate it. And when they regulate it, they're going to, these people got away, it was a way to hide wealth to avoid taxation. Now, this Biden bill got through supposedly 7,000 or 8,000 IRS agents through it. What do you think they're going to do? The tax evaders, they're going to go after them. And it's going to get regulated, so it's going to become not the abstract way to hide Tom Brady and his wife. By the way, Tom Brady and his wife's divorce, I think it all has to do with Bitcoin and trying to hide, avoid prison. You know, they're guilty. You know, I mean, these lawsuits are flying all over. Stephen Curry's guilty, all of them, because they owned it, yet they promoted it. So inflation, 101 with Dr. Blanch. You know, I graduated, I taught at the number. Why did they blackball? Because they went after the nuclear industry. By the way, I got AML leukemia, and they could have paid for my cancer treatment because I was working on a PhD at the time. And I wasn't on their dime. I was untenured. Just did all their dirty work for years and years and years. And they fucking stabbed me in the back. But that's what the nuclear energy, I mean, come on, it's the water school business. Yeah, the CEO of GE. Now, you want to talk a Ponzi scheme. I mean, who should be sued? Kramer and CNBC. Back at the truck at GE 64. Back at the truck at 64. It was the most widely held stock in America. In an up incredible freaking market, that stock went from $64 to $666. And I'm the guy that was saying you short it. Now remember, it's up there now at 84. They did an 8-for-1 reverse split. It's sitting around $10. It's all Jack Welch orchestrated one of the greatest Ponzi schemes in fucking world history. The United States, by definition, the United States stock market and the United States Fed is a Ponzi scheme by definition. Now, what's a Ponzi scheme by definition? Robbing Peter to play Paul. You know, and hopefully you get more coming in. What is the Fed's doing with the Fed? They're using our own money to pay off this and bigger and bigger. They've got to let the air up. They don't want the bubble to burst, so they're trying. Yet they're just bowing to these corporatists. It's imperialism. They're bowing to CEOs who have quadrupled. They've gotten even richer and richer and richer. Where does it end? Where does it end? I mean, where does it end? Not good. But how do you beat it? You can't. It's impossible. It's the one thing you can try to live abstractly, grow your own food. Yeah. We're going to have 333 million farmers in this country with a fucking acreage. Not going to happen. And by the way, the welfare in the farming industry, these mega dairies, big ag, spraying thing, that's so fucking corrupt, milking their cows for it, poisonous. You know, and so you want to eat organically. I've got cancer. I've got leukemia. And so I try. Fuck. Good luck. I mean, the tomato in San Diego, that great juice bar I used to drink, had to close. The Mad Beat, and here's my grandson who was born he's only 11 years old. He says, I'll tell you the best example of inflation, Grandpa. The Mad Beat and PB, just in my lifetime, because he's been there with me. Those good bowls that we get, you know, with the fruit bowls, he does a fantastic job. They've gone from $5 to $9 just in the last year. You've got inflation figured out. So who's the culprits? The people that rob these PPP loans and just fucking went out there and acting all fucking that. Until you see cryptocurrency go down at least around 11,000. Until you see the United States dollar at least go down to 24,000. You're not, and the municipalities love it because they've been able to go along with it and jack up your freaking mortgages because they're based on property values. So these municipalities so look, I want you to go look at your county commissioners or whatever, these corrupt fuckers. Every one of them in every municipality has just fucking gave themselves, they doubled their fucking salaries. They're loving it. They're so full of cash at the local municipality fucking level. Fuck, remember the state of California's ready to go bankrupt. Now they have the biggest surplus in fucking history. Don't know what to do with it because of property tax. They're loving it. Why they're gang raping their fucking thing. I mean, why don't you fucking give a tax break to your populace? You know, quit taxing food. Quit fucking, I mean, why don't you go arrest Ayn Rand Greenspan? I mean, Alan Greenspan will go down in history is the greatest economic terrorist in fucking human history. And I'm the guy that named it Ayn Rand. I used to go to this lecture clear back in 2000. Hyperinflation, inflation is the dagger to all people. How do you avoid it? You can't. And so it's sad what they've done. It's heartbreaking. And then they've poisoned the rest of the world by it, you know. rent control, fucking, we don't have any of that. You know, it's a nightmare. So twofold what caused this inflation. One, the Fed and Rand Greenspan started in 2000. When they should have been raising, they were lowering. And they've just flooded, again, the debt and inflation are Siamese twins connected at the hip. And just look at the debt, look at inflation. I mean, it's that simple. And then these PPP loans and the people that robbed it. Well, threefold. Cryptocurrency is a big piece. The Fed lost control of the money supply. And it becomes so hyper bubbled up. I mean, I've read fucking numbers. The multi trillions of dollars that was created out of thin air. Well, you don't think people spend it? I mean, fuck. Every day I read another fucking Ponzi scheme. People fucking buying fucking apartment complex, restaurants, fucking, I mean, tracts of houses, real estate developers with Bitcoin profits. And by the way, the Bitcoin emperor has no clothes. Everybody's sitting there naked, biting their fingernails, hoping this bounces back to 30 so they can get out. It's not just semi-am, Bankman-Fried scam. There's fucking lots of these platforms and lots of these, and you're, trying to hold your Bitcoin in your own wallet. Fucking good luck. I think you're going to see societies around the world start to completely ban it. What's my price target on Bitcoin? And I've said this for years, $400, So the United States Fed, a Ponzi scheme? Absolutely. I mean, the United States stock market, by definition. So there's your inflation class. And the number one school of business in the United States, I had to go rogue because I started taking the nuclear industry years ago. And, so you have to seek out knowledge. They're not going to contemporize my videos. So stay tuned. We'll do more of these. And donate to my cause. If, you make some money off Kevin Blanch's cause, just help a guy out. I've got leukemia and I fight the nuclear energy crime syndicate. That's what my cause is. Trying to save you from you. The Post-Ignorance University. Stay tuned.